Well, hi, everybody. This presentation introduces Chapter 1 of Bruce Bloch's The Visual Story, which is the book that we're going to be using for this course. We'll focus on the core visual building blocks that support cinematic storytelling and guide emotional engagement for your viewer. The imagery that I'm going to be using throughout this presentation are film stills from Disney's 1994 Lion King. So hopefully, if you've ever seen it, it'll be a little bit nostalgic for you. If you haven't, you should check it out. It's an oldie, but a goodie. All right. So, cinematic visuals do more than just look pretty. And I think The Lion King is a great example to use for this chapter because it is an animated film. There's a lot of bright colors. Every frame looks like a painting, which is something that we'll be talking about in terms of cinematic composition throughout the term. But it also, the visuals in cinema convey emotion, they set tone, and they tell stories. Audiences engage with images through story, sound, and visuals. Understanding the visual components gives us control over how meaning is created, okay? So it's really important to know that story, sound, and visuals are the three things that work together to create that cinematic experience. So there are 7 basic visual components in cinematic composition. And you might be familiar with these if you've ever had an introduction to design, maybe a graphic design course or a fine arts design course. These are the basic visual components, elements and principles of design 101. Well, they are also the building blocks of all visual storytelling, which includes moving image content as well. They appear in every frame, whether you're aware of them or not. And I guarantee you that throughout the term in this class, you're going to become hyper aware of the visual components and the building blocks of composition in cinema. These have a profound effect on the audience perception and emotion that they're feeling while they're engaged with moving image storytelling. Another thing that you will probably come to notice over the term is that when you're watching films with your friends and family, you're going to be the one that is picking apart and deconstructing the production of whatever you're watching. And many students have told me they're like the annoying one in the group that brings up all of the sort of behind the scenes information that not everybody knows about. So for better or worse, you're going to be a lot smarter about composition in film and behind the scenes production as well. Okay, so some key terms and concepts. So the real world is a 3D space where we live. And I know you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, obviously. But when we think about cinematic composition and the language of storytelling through capturing moving images, everything in the screen world goes to a 2D visual environment. The picture plane is a framed space that we work within. And understanding depth via the foreground, middle ground, and background is essential for composition. So what you have to kind of train your brain to think about when it comes to pre-production is that you're taking a story idea and then a script from just text into basically, capturing a picture plane from a 3D world and, compacting it into a 2D space, because you are controlling what the viewer sees. You are controlling how the viewer thinks and feels about a particular scene in a film or, a story or whatever it is that you're producing. Documentary, it could be anything. So what hopefully you'll come to understand throughout the term is the power and beauty and absolute focus that you can bring into a story with that two-dimensional picture plane. So the visual components in detail. So space, it includes the physical and the on-screen space. Line is created by tonal contrast and defines shape. Tone refers to the brightness or value, and it is crucial in both color and black and white visuals, which we will look at both. So in this particular film still, I won't get into the plot of The Lion King too much, but we have Scar, our antagonist, and we don't even have to know who this character is in this film. We know something nefarious is going on. And this is by looking at the space, the line and shape of the composition and the tone, right? We are close up and close to Scar, yet he is a dark silhouette, and all that is highlighted on his silhouette is his sort of evil expression on his face. He has kind of a maniacal sort of laugh going on. And we have line that's created in the composition, literally with lines making squares, kind of showing how the marching hyenas are all in line. They're all very organized. And this is all on purpose. We can see that the light reflecting on the right side of each hyena is perfectly in sync, which means they are all marching exactly the same way. They are in the same angle, and Scar has them all under control. The value is showing Scar in a dark silhouette, which we can pretty much say, like, this is probably a bad dude, right? And then under Scar's ruling of the kingdom, it's just darkness. There's a green sort of hazy fog coming through the composition, and that is what's lighting the composition overall. So all of these visual components play a part in telling the viewer how they should think and feel about a particular scene, okay, or even a film still. All right, so then we have color, movement, and rhythm. Color is often stereotyped, but it is actually highly versatile. There is a color story in any film that uses color. Some films use black and white and then go into color. Sometimes color is used in a conceptual manner in that capacity, and we'll look at examples of that as the term goes forward. Movement can be created by objects. The camera can also move through a space or from the audience's gaze. So, also characters have different types of movement. So here we have Timon and Pumbaa, of course. And they are, they're very different animals. They have very different ways that they move, and they are identifiable because of not only their shape, but how they move across the screen. And this is directly tied into each character's personality. And then there's rhythm, and rhythm isn't just auditory. It appears in visuals, editing, and design everywhere. So there is visual rhythm throughout all cinematic storytelling. And the rhythm in this particular image would be the cracks in that dry dirt. We know that this is a place that doesn't have a lot of food. There's probably not a lot of water, and we just see the rhythm of these cracks in the dirt going on forever into the background until the horizon where the land meets the sky. Even if a filmmaker ignores visual components, the audience doesn't. Visual elements always influence perception. Controlling these elements ensures consistency and emotional clarity throughout the production. So even if they are not considered at all when something is produced, there will still be visual rules throughout a particular story. But I highly doubt that happens very often because the visual components are so important to the story. They almost cannot be, ignored in any capacity. So visual structure helps with decisions about blocking, set design, lens choice, and editing. And it ensures that all the visual choices work in harmony with the narrative. So in the same way that a story needs to have the right kind of progression and arc in terms of what's happening to the characters, the visual structure is just as important as the script. The visual structure and the script work together to tell the story. So, visual progression, let's talk about this a little bit. So just as a story progresses, like I was just saying, so do the visuals. And they go from generally simple to complex. Films and commercials use visual progression to build intensity, to mirror story arcs, and maintain viewer interest as well. So a very simple illustration of a visual progression is illustrated here. And you can see that we start off with a point, we move into line. That line then creates a square, and then we move into a three-dimensional box. Now, I know this seems a little bit silly, but there are in particular scenes in a film where we have a change in the story, something's revealed, there's a major movement in the beat of the story. There's going to be a visual progression in any type of scene like that. And I have some examples for you to look at as soon as you're done with this lecture, so that you can see what it is that we're talking, or that I'm talking about, illustrated right to you. All right, so understanding structure does not restrict creativity. It actually enhances it. Visual literacy provides a shared language with collaborators, and it helps bring ideas to life more effectively. So, understanding the visual structure of a film, it keeps everybody on board. It's sort of a roadmap for the story. It helps tell the story. And it's basically, it's a visual language of a particular production. So it creates a cohesion in the story so that the script and the visuals are working together. And then, of course, there's sound, which we'll get into. So anyways, I do have some film clips posted for you to check out the visual progression, and you're going to be looking at how the visual intensity develops over time as suspense and is built up in each particular clip. Now, this doesn't mean that the composition's very, very simple and there's very few visuals to look at and then it becomes complicated, but think about the pace and the rhythm, the complexity of the composition as you're looking at those, and just keep that in mind as we keep moving forward in the term and we break down these visual components one by one. All right, well, that's all I have for you on this one. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.